Why don't we just do a show, Danny? How about that?
Let's do a show.
All right, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. We're just checking our soundboard here and doing some mic checks, and you're so far away at the moment. I want to make sure that we have you like 100%.
I'm in the Colorado studio.
Yeah. How about that, man? Out west.
Yeah, man.
How are you liking it out there? I've been watching your Instagram, and it looks like you've gotten out on the bike a little bit. And
yeah, thanks. No, it's great. I like it. Yeah, we're having fun, and now that the gluttonous, debaucherous holidays are kind of moving behind us, things are just resuming to like normal, and I can just have more structure and go out and ride. And so yeah, I got to squeeze in a nice ride. We can talk about the last nice day before the, what do they call it? The bomb cyclone. So the vortex, whatever, the crazy sub-freezing temps. So we got that before you guys. Then it got nicer, and today was the first like really nice day, and it was near 50 and partly sunny. And then tomorrow is going to be maybe the nicest day of the week or 2 weeks. It's gonna hit almost 60 tomorrow. So, and it should be at least partly sunny. So it'll go back down a little colder after, but yeah, making the most of it. It's really, really nice and just having a good time. And I've never been here with my bike, so it's like a whole new thing. I'm on the whole new frontier, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, we're back. Obviously, we're back from the
after a hiatus,
a short holiday. Yeah, a short holiday break. And Danny is in Boulder, Colorado, where he is. They drove out there kind of it seemed like kind of a last minute thing. Although you were thinking about it for a while, but it materialized all of a sudden for you guys. And
exactly,
you made the drive out there right before the holidays. Is that right?
That's right. It was the Sunday before. So I think was it 18th, something like that. So we ended up doing it all in one go. So we left early Sunday and drove all the way through, got into town about 9 or 10 p.m. local time, and had the cat in the car and had the bike on the back and all our crap, and got here. And it's been great since, man. It's been really good. Obviously, a lot of holiday stuff with the family.
Sure.
Sarah's family, which was super fun. And yeah, just, now we're just kind of getting a little bit back into it. We have a couple of days off work, which is good. And like I said, a lot of good weather. So it's pretty nice. I got to squeeze in a little ride today. And then I had one before the big holidays kicked in and that cold weather came down. And so just a couple of rides, but
you guys have a place out there, right? You're not staying with family,
right? Yeah, exactly. We got an Airbnb.
Nice.
And I think it was, who was it? Benjamin Franklin said, "Fish and visitors smell after 3 days."
Yeah.
I've always taken that to heart.
Yeah.
Plus, actually, with the cat is the X factor. So,
gotcha.
Everyone we know here has dogs, and so that just ain't gonna fly. Anyway, so no, it's been good. We got an Airbnb. It's really nice. We're really happy with it. It's in a cool neighborhood. It's in North Boulder.
Okay.
And so we're pretty close to like very, very central downtown Boulder. And it's great. I'll talk about it in this pod, but the bike infrastructure here, Joe, is mind-blowingly good. It's so nice, and so it's just amazing. It gives me a little hope in humanity. Like when you see a place like this and their bike infrastructure, it would blow anyone's mind. I think. I don't know. I can't think of places that come near to it that I've been to. But it's really, really nice. Like the bike system they have it's quite astounding. Like I knew it was good, but I was like, I'm riding and I'm like, oh my God, this is so good.
Yeah. I've heard, obviously it's one of those places that's talked about a lot in the magazines and just in cycling literature that I get a lot through the bicycle shop. There's a lot of advocacy stuff and a lot of things that come through, and Boulder is one of those places that's kind of an example of what things could be around the country. As far as infrastructure goes. These days you hear a lot about Arkansas, the Fayetteville, Bentonville area down there. I mean, now that the only thing that I hear about in the United States that can rival, I guess, what they have what they have in Boulder these days is like that Bentonville, Arkansas, and Fayetteville area. that that the Waltons have been pouring so much money into.
Yeah, go figure. The same people who own Rafa, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. They cyclists and very very much into cycling and have decided to obviously business decisions. I think that one of the big things down there, one of the big motivators, is to make it more attractive to talent. People to relocate down there and work there.
Yeah, it's a good point.
But it's also what it's done is attracted a lot of the bicycle industry down there. So a lot of bike companies that are actually relocating down to that area. I know Vittoria is there. Wouldn't be surprised to see a SRAM office there soon. And
wow, man, look at you with all the inside info. This is great. Are you gathering this from your industry convos and Zoom chats and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
or are you getting all this great intel, Joe?
Well, I think it's kind of out there. You read some of the trade magazines, some of the bicycle magazines, and the bike companies have been putting out releases. I think a lot of the bike companies want to be associated with that area these days. Like that's become the hot destination for Midwesterners to go mountain biking and maybe spend a long weekend because it's like I think 12-hour drive, 11-hour drive from Chicago. So it's not, it's something that's very doable for 3 or 4 days.
Right.
And from what I gather and what I've heard from people, it's just, well, you were down there for the Cyclocross Worlds, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, you actually got a firsthand look at a little bit of what's going on down there.
Yeah. I mean, it was fantastic. And it's funny you were talking about because I remember standing in line that the one thing they really botched there was like the food lines and stuff like that. Point being is I got some good conversations in that line, and folks, the theme there was like, oh man, the mountain biking here is crazy good. Like everyone was talking about like how good the trails were. Certainly the Cyclocross World Championships I thought were a big success. I mean, I don't know how to measure it other than just like anecdotally, but anecdotally it seemed like a great time. It was a fun party and the racing was great and the course was super cool. And we had a blast.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of my employees headed down there for the World Championships.
Yes, they were.
And so, yeah. I mean, it's just I've been hearing the same thing, and from a lot of different people in all walks of life. There's just been a lot of talk about that area, and it's coming to a point where it can't be ignored anymore. It's kind of like this hub, this cycling hub.
Who'd have thunk it? Bensonville. Like I would have never really thought in that. I'm sorry, I said Bensonville, Bentonville. I would have never really thought that. That's really cool. I mean, I love to see new destinations, new places getting some energy and some cash and everything else that's going into it. And if they're getting transplants going there for the cycling, like. For me, that's great. I mean, we need more boulders in this country. That's for sure.
Yeah, the community is, obviously the Waltons have supported that a lot with a lot of their initiatives. I know through their foundation, they hired a bunch of trail builders to go out and do a bunch of work out there.
Nice.
The premier trail builders in the country, and brought them all down and gave them the resources to go nuts down there.
And full disclosure, we're not sponsored by Walmart.
No, but
corporation.
Not at all.
But that is really cool, actually. So it's definitely like in terms of the geography, the place it sits in the U.S., it's good to have other areas because obviously everyone knows about Boulder. We've all heard of it. We know like there are some places maybe in Colorado. There are places, but there's nothing that's been kind of solidified and like really intentionally done almost. So that's really cool. Who knows if we'll have more races there? I know they've had some other cyclocross races. I think they've had some national championship races there, if I'm not mistaken. So it's always been kind of simmering. It's been kind of on the radar, but good to hear it's coming up, man.
Yeah. It's certainly a place to keep an eye on.
So anyway, so we're here in Boulder. It's been great. And we wish you could come out and visit. So the door is open. We have a 3-bedroom Airbnb, which is pretty cool.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah, it's great. One's kind of like an office with a what do you call them?
I see that with your like big library there in the background, and
that could be my screensaver background. But yeah, you're welcome to come out. It's really nice here, and like I said, it's not like we're in Tucson or Austin kind of weather, but it's to me, coming from Chicago, like I guess tomorrow's gonna be near 60. And it's gonna definitely cool. It's gonna definitely get colder, so it'll go back down to like 40s and stuff. But it seems to be around this time of year, things are hovering in the 40s, kind of like mid 40s. And for me, that's fine. Like that's good. I got my gear layered up, and you can kind of cherry pick when you go out for your ride. So there's a lot of good. The cool thing about Boulder, in short, is we're right near the Rocky Mountains, obviously. So if you go west, you go right into the mountains. Like there's the Flagstaff climb. There's all these climbs. You go east, you're heading toward Nebraska, and it's just flat. So and you can mix up a little bit, but you kind of have those two main options.
So it's pretty flat as you head east out of Boulder.
Yeah, it gets very flat pretty quickly. But really? Yeah, I mean there's a little bit of like today was kind of an example. So I did this. I looked on Strava and I just found it's kind of nice. You can find like you put in your location and it'll show you the most popular rides, and you can just pick and choose like on distance and what kind of paved or unpaved and all this kind of stuff. So I was kind of like getting out a little late, so I did kind of a quick search and picked the first decent one. And it was a nice 30-mile spin, and almost all flat. Now, flat for Boulder still means you're doing like 1,500 feet, which in Chicago would be like amazing, right? You'd be like, oh my God, this is fantastic. For here, it was kind of like a long drag coming into Boulder and then a long downhill. But anyway, generally it's pretty flat, and yeah, it's nice, and it's good riding. Like everywhere I rode, I'd say half of it was on this bike kind of path infrastructure, and it's just mind blowing how good it is. And then the other half was on these like kind of country roads almost, but beautifully paved, almost all of them. A little bike lane on the side with a little painted line. So no, it's been really good.
A lot of people on the road. You come across a lot of cyclists.
Sarah asked me that tonight at dinner. There were a handful today that I saw for sure, including a couple of commuters on e-bikes actually, but some old pedal bikes like myself. And I did go out a little later. I've noticed when we've been just running errands and kind of out and about for coffee and whatever, I've seen a lot of cyclists. So a lot of people, rightly so, they get out earlier. Just because of the logistics today, I got out a little late. So I went out about 2 and got home about 4:30, right before sunset. So, but yeah, you do see a lot of cyclists. And now when you go west, so the first couple of days I was here, I did that ride up Flagstaff, which is the local, like super local, really good climb that like Phil Guyman has done like videos on. Like he's done his like KOM challenges on there, and the leaderboard for the KOMs there is just like it's a crazy it's a crazy list. You're like, okay, he's a Tour de France guy, he's a Tour de France guy, and all these like super elite amateurs and whatnot. So, but anyway, the point being is like you go west and like you have that, and I'm just scratching the surface. So in the next month or two, I'll be checking out even more climbs, and I'm slowly but steadily getting acclimated to the altitude.
So how long you said the next month or two, so how long are you planning to be in Colorado?
So we got a place, our Airbnb is for a month.
Okay.
So basically mid-December to mid-July or mid-January. And we're almost for certain going to extend it one more month.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Nice. So, and we could possibly stay it a little longer, but that's what we got going on right now. So my Garmin reminded me today I'm acclimated to like 4,200 feet so far. Boulder's at 5,500. So slowly but surely, it definitely is something you have to be very careful about, the altitude. So I've been riding like real chill and just drinking a ton of water and just trying to do everything right. But but yeah, so but anyway, it's great riding, and I can't wait to. I'm stalking like everyone's like local Strava, all their routes and rides and stuff, and hitting up some people, including Dan Calavari, who we had on the show.
Yeah.
I've been hitting him up for some info, so hopefully we'll get out for a ride. But yeah, it's great out here. And like I said, it's not like we flew to Austin or something where it's like 70 and sunny. It's still, you still got to bundle up, but
sure,
compared to Chicago. But then, the key difference here, and other people have said this obviously, but the key difference is it's sunny, 300 days plus a year of sun. So that sun makes the big difference. So it could be 40 in Chicago and 40 here, but the thing is here, it's going to be sunny and dry for the most part. So that's been like the big difference maker, and it really does make a big difference. So it's, the air is obviously, it's not as humid, not nearly as humid. So that kind of makes a difference too in different ways. But overall, it's really cool. And I'm just really stoked to be here with my bike and to be able to head out. Even like like you can go, again, the local big climb is Flagstaff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a challenging climb. Not super long. I think it's like just over 3 miles, but it's got some real steep ramps. I'm not like a tech weenie, so I couldn't tell you the gradients offhand, but they're pretty legit, and the pros will train on those and others. But like that's like a cool climb because it's like literally like almost like in town. It's like on the edge of town, so you can like go get on your bike, go do that, and be home inside 90 minutes,
mm-hmm.
and you've done this like really legit like climb. So that's really sweet. If I could only just like helicopter lift that, drop it in Chicago.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing to have that like right there.
Sure.
And to kind of get back to your question, that day I did ride, I saw a bunch of cyclists.
Okay.
Some people were in groups. I thought I saw someone from Jumbo Visma, but I may have been mistaken. But he looked very skinny and very fast. But that's the local climb, as I said, and I saw dozens of cyclists there, up and down. So
okay,
it's a really good climb, and it's pretty fast coming down too. So I was thinking pretty handy, but beautiful sights and overlooks Boulder, and I can go on and on about it.
Well, anybody who grew up here racing bikes, Boulder was always associated with the 7-Eleven cycling team. The mid '80s teams, and Davis Finney and Doug Shapiro mm-hmm. and all those mm-hmm. guys coming out of there. So I was wondering if you still had that buzz there. I mean, I know people riding bikes. Obviously, it's just a pretty popular activity. But like as far as that racing scene, if those guys were still around, and the people that you are coming across, do they look like weekend warriors or people training for Tour de France?
My son. It's one of the things that I have top of mind, like something I kind of want to be able to answer in a month or two. That same question you just asked. I think my sense right now is that, we all know a lot of U.S. pros kind of have their places over in Europe, whether it's Girona or Alicante or mm-hmm. wherever. And I do see folks sometimes stay over there in the winter and they get their training in, and obviously the New Year's knocking on the door. And then you look at folks like Taylor Finney, who's obviously retired, but he's in Spain, mm-hmm. and he's according to his social media, he's like there and riding there. And his wife is still a pro, or are they married, or his girlfriend? So, and I know like Alex Howes I think he lives in Nederland, which is like this town right not far from Boulder. I think it's up in the mountains. Mm-hmm. So there's still like some of it, of course. I'm not super tuned into it, but I would like mm-hmm. to have a little bit better sense of it before we head out. We'll see what happens. Kind of related, I went to the Rafa Boulder store today, and what a small world, Joe. So I went into the Rafa store, and I had a reason to go in there. So I bought this Rafa jacket, and I lost I bought it some time ago. It's actually really nice. It was one of my first Rafa pieces. Mm-hmm. But they had a sale, and I got this jacket. It's really nice. Anyway, but I lost the hood to it. It has this detachable hood, and so I lost the hood, which was one of my favorite things about the jacket. And this is lame, but Rafa literally doesn't have any extra hoods that they can sell you. They don't like sell it separately, which I think is just ridiculous. And I'm like banging my head against the wall, trying to find one. And I even went on eBay and all these places, and they're like, yeah, they just don't sell it separately. And I'm like, So anyway, I popped in just in case because we were in the neighborhood, and I walk in and I see this guy. He works on the floor, and I'm like, he looks really familiar. And then I went looking at something on the other side of the store, and then I came back and I'm like, are you Renee from New York? And he's like, yeah. So anyway, long story short, former teammate. We were on the casino team in New York City, and I think were we also on our other team? Anyway, we're on a couple of different teams. He ended up on GS Minjoni, the famed New York team, and then he just kind of stopped racing. But he moved here from New York City, and so we ended up chatting. We connected, and I'm going to hang out with him a little bit, hopefully, while I'm in town. And it was such a blast from the past because that would have been like early mid. That would have been around 2013. I moved in 2016, but I kind of stopped racing. But so a good decade on, let's say. And so it was kind of wild to run into someone, and there they were just hanging out in the Rafa shop. And it was fun. I went in there. I always like to go to the Rafa stores.
Was he hanging out or
he was working.
He worked.
He was working. Yeah, but it was kind of a slow day, so it was kind of also, there's not much to do. The only so many times you could refold a $90 t-shirt.
Yeah.
But
still $90.
Yeah. But my point was, whenever I'm in a situation like this, which isn't very often, but occasionally I am, where I'm in a new city, and I have a bike with me or a bike that I borrow, I usually go to the Rafa store. And again, I haven't always bought much from Rafa because they're obviously very exclusive. They're pretty expensive. And there's just so much other stuff available that I think is just as good and more affordable. But I do like that, they call them, clubhouses is the term they give to these stores. And it's kind of cool because, it has like it has a big TV, and it has like a tour stage or one of the classics on. They just have them on like a loop. So you're kind of like, oh, cool. Like there's some cycling happening here. And they have like a cafe built in there, but they have all the local rides, like on these little cards and stuff. You can grab one, and little barcodes you can kind of just scan, and takes you to like the Ride with GPS app or the Strava app. So I went there today, and it was cool to meet Renee, but also just got the download kind of literally of all the local like good rides.
Okay.
And so that was really cool. So I got those plugged into my phone now, and depending how I'm feeling each day, I can either do a long ride, depending on how the altitude is going and all that, or do short rides. But it's usually like a really good resource for like, because one thing that they always emphasize is the quality. I would just have to say, and I'm not boosting them by any means, but I think you have to say everything they kind of do is of a high quality. So if they're going to like post a ride, like, hey, we like this local loop, like it's going to be a pretty damn good loop. They don't kind of like go short on anything. So anyway, I did it before when I was in San Francisco. Speaking of, you mentioned them earlier, some of those like Mount Tam and some of those climbs. And so I did it here too. And it turned out to be great. And sure enough, I run into an old teammate. It's how small the cycling world is, Joe.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those cycling safe spaces. It's one of those places you can search out and in many ways, kind of like what a bike shop provides. I guess a common language. You're able to go in there, and that it's. I know the one here in Chicago's. As soon as they popped up on the scene, it became kind of a place where they were holding workshops, and they became pretty important to the local bike community. Like SRAM. They did that. SRAM would go there.
Yeah, they do. Obviously, they organize a bunch of rides, but like companies like SRAM will be like, hey, we're gonna have a Q&A. We're launching our new ETAP system, and I've gone there for stuff like that. And they had the cyclocross awards show there at the end of the Shycross Cup series and all that kind of stuff. But it's cool because there's really nothing quite like it. I know
No,
that sounds like marketing speak, but there really kind of isn't.
no, they've done a good job. I mean, it's I guess it all circles back to that. The people that own them, right? I mean, it's that's you've got to hand it to those guys, and they were real cyclists.
Yep.
The Waltons, they were actually, there's those guys rode bikes. That's thus their interest in some of these projects, and the things that they have. It's really easy to hate them. Like people want to people. There's a lot people.
I know.
People want to hate Walmart, and I guess that's a part. But what those guys have done in cycling, the things that they've done is pretty interesting, and they're doing it well.
Yeah.
I think I was kind of as a bike shop guy, when the Rafa store came in, and when they bought Rafa, even when they bought Rafa, everybody was prepared to but
remember all the memes, like you'd buy Rafa gear at Walmart.
Yeah,
mean, and I'm like a lot of people, I used to give Rafa a lot of shit, because they had this image, everything was bespoke, and it was like everything, it felt very elitist and almost smug, and it felt kind of like a slap in the face. And their imagery, if you will, was always kind of like that misty mountain, and a couple of dudes riding up in like their pink gaiters, and there'd be some like whatever. But and to be clear too, they were doing a lot of this Clubhouse stuff before the private equity firm from the Waltons bought them. But to your point, though, I think it's cool that they have kind of seemingly kept it going. The Rafa stores, as far as I can tell, I haven't checked, but I don't think they've disappeared. And they have them across the country, more or less. So I don't know. I'm not. You're not going to see me kitted out fully in Rafa anytime soon, because it is pretty damn expensive.
Yeah. I mean, I don't own any of their gear. I don't own anything that they've made, but as far as like the community stuff, I'm just speaking for Chicago. Like there were people that I worked with at the bike shop that went over to work for them, and I can vouch for like those people. They were like really cool people. Like when they got a job there, I was like, wow, she's working there. She's pretty cool, and she's leading rides out of there, and I'm like, well, I know that person, and whatever she's doing, I don't care under what banner or what name she's doing it. It's cool. Like I can vouch for that person, and
I will say, I just paid for it with my own money. But one piece that I really love from them that I have is this cycling like puffy jacket. And it's just like once in a while you get something that it's just like this perfect piece. Like it couldn't be improved on. Like I have a handful of those, and one of them is the Rafa jacket, and it's just so versatile.
The one with the missing hood?
Yes. It's a little less versatile suddenly. But the one with the missing hood, if anyone's out there and has a blue Rafa hood, please let me know. I actually found a guy on eBay, and he had a jacket, the same exact one and the same size. And I asked them through the messaging, I said, hey, would you sell me just the hood? He's like, no, sorry. And I totally get why. But I have tried. But I was going to say it's a very beautiful piece. It's, a little bit longer in the back, of course, for cyclists. It's got long arms. It has two nice pockets inside, but it's so versatile, and it folds up into this tiny, tiny, like taco size bag that comes with it. And it'll fit in your jersey pocket or your saddle bag or your handlebar bag or whatever. And so, but it's amazing how you can use that thing, even if there's like a cool wind on your chest, but also like real legit cold temperatures. Like I wore it today. And anyway, just my little plug for that. But yeah, their stuff is definitely not cheap. There's the absurd part, like that stuff kind of makes sense a little bit to me. And I think I got that on sale a little bit, but I think they normally charge like $300 or more for that jacket. But again, if you're cycling, if I wear that like 50, 100 days a year and have that for years, like I don't know. It's a pretty good investment.
Yeah, that's not outland.
I've had cheaper stuff too, and it
Yeah.
doesn't always. It's just not quite right. That's what Rafa does well. Is they get it like exact.
Mm.
It's exact. Like a lot of stuff is like kind of close, but it's just there's always something like, oh, I don't like this, or
Yeah.
it does this, or Rafa, like they're so zeroed in. There's a lot out there. What's the new one that SRAM bought? I'm just drawing a blank. They have a clothing apparel line now that they've been trying to plug. I saw on LinkedIn they're trying to hire to fill some roles. So I think they want to make that like a much bigger thing.
No, I'm not aware of.
Let me look it up here.
Yeah.
Is it, how do you say it? Velaccio? Velaccio? But anyway, like they bought that not long ago, and I think they clearly want to make that like a big thing. And so I saw like on LinkedIn, because I follow SRAM on LinkedIn, and they had a bunch of job postings. Like one day it was just like a slew of them. I'm like, oh, they're looking to make this like a big deal.
Interesting.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on. But it's great being here, enjoying it, getting out of Chicago for a little bit. But how have things been with you and the shop? I haven't talked to you in like a week and a half or so.
Good. We got hit by that massive cold front over the last week, so there really hasn't been a lot going on except trying to make sure the pipes don't freeze and checking in on the store, trying to get a few things done there at the shop before things. This time of the year, everything is kind of. Everything goes on hold. A lot of the bike companies are closed. Even if you do want to get stuff done, like, I know today I tried to call a couple of places and they were still celebrating the holiday. So, tomorrow you can, some of the bike companies distributors will be back open again. And, I guess they'll be around until the end of the week. Some of them are closed on Friday. So, it's everything right now. It's, and a lot of the account people are out of town and out of the office. So you're getting a lot of auto replies and things like that. So, no, just, for me, all my focus is on next season already. And so for me, it's getting all that stuff done. I know some bike shops around the country, I saw that they were doing, they're still kind of, they do get some holiday business. For me, it's a little bit more seasonal. My action really comes once the spring and the summer comes. I'd say that our area has developed into like a little bit of like a spring, summer, fall destination place. So a lot of our business comes at that time of the year with rentals and just our regular bicycle business at that time. For me, like a bike shop wise, in January, February, I'll start seeing repairs come in. All of our regulars, people that want to be ready for those first few 50 to 60 degree days,
that first beautiful Saturday.
Yeah, they're thinking ahead. They're thinking ahead. So I have started to receive some phone calls about people wanting to bring in their bikes, and I always appreciate that, just because I'd rather spread it out than get it all at one shot, and I do like a little bit of a discount in January. I'll usually offer like last year's price, before the price increase. So I think that will, especially this year, there's like a legit price increase and stuff. Just kind of adjusting to,
inflation.
Yeah, I mean it's real, man. It's real all across.
It's totally real.
It's super real, man. Like all that stuff, like things like just the stuff you never thought about. Like oil and rags and the shop supplies. Like there's talk now. I was on a meeting with some shop owners, and there's talk about shop fees, like including a shop fee in the tune-up, the price of a tune-up, and whether you do it or not. And there are shops around the country that have been charging this like $5 fee, shop fee, kind of like you get at the auto parts, the auto repair place, right?
You should do it, man. There's a fee for everything now.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean,
everywhere you go, restaurants, everything. There's like, we have this fee now. You're like, what is this?
Yeah, I've been aware of it for a long time. Like I just didn't, I'm like, man, I'm just going to include it in the price of the tune-up. I'm just going to, and this year I think I'm going to implement that fee. You know, and I've been encouraged to do it a couple of times over the, over the years. And there are shops that have had this fee, for as long as I can remember, 10 years, 10, 15 years when I first heard about it. But it's become like something, a real big point of discussion on these calls.
So what do you say? Like, let's role play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Joe, what's this shop fee? 5%. What's
Mm-hmm.
this about? Was that a good accent?
Yeah, that was. Hey, that's great. Yeah, that's what it is, Danny. I mean, it's like that's been my That's why I've been hesitant to kind of impose this fee, and that it's like, man, it seems like I'm nickel and diming people. Like, why don't I just include it? I've kind of rolled it into the price of the tune-up. But I think these days, like just the labor costs have gone up, and then you've got these expenses, like the price of a can of oil for me it just seemed like I could build that into the price of the tune-up. Okay, I guess I would eat that, just include it in there. But now those supplies, like when you start adding that stuff up, it's like real legit, a real legit expense. If you want to use good stuff, I mean, I could run out to the Menards and buy some cheap oil, and just use some really bad stuff. But if I want to, keep using like, good products for the tune-ups, then I've got to cover my expenses on that stuff. And I think that that's a good way to do it. Like you said, there's these fees, these surcharges are just part of life now,
Yeah, they really are. I went to get a Christmas gift for my better half, a massage at this local kind of hotel spa. And we did it like last year. And so I went back, and now they're like, oh, and we have a surcharge, and it was like 20%, and it was a lot. It was almost like $40. And I was like, I'm sorry, what is the surcharge? Or they call it a service fee. And long story short, they're like, well, it's 20% tip, 20% gratuity for the massage therapist. And then there's like a small fee in there for the staff. And, of course I was like, okay, great. But it's technically optional, but they basically go ahead and like assume you're going to pay it. And they kind of, the way they even word it is kind of like, that's okay, right? And what are you going to say? No? Like,
yeah.
I mean, of course you're going to tip.
Yeah.
Any normal person, I think, would tip a massage specialist. But, it's just kind of like the way they did it. Because I was like, oh, that brings the price up like a lot. So philosophically, I wasn't against paying it, but the advertised price for the massage and then that service fee brings it up considerably, because it wasn't just like a 20% gratuity, it was even more. So yeah, we've seen it everywhere. Restaurants are the main ones for me.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll have it in there, and of course I want people to earn a living wage and everything, but it's just kind of complicated too, because sometimes you might want to tip even more, or and I don't want to sound like a bad guy, but sometimes what if you have really crappy service? Like now it's kind of assumed that everyone's going to kind of get it. And I don't want to get into like crazy talk, like should people be tipped or not? Of course they should be tipped. But I'm just saying occasionally you might get some really bad freaking service. And I'm not saying you're not going to tip them, but you might give them 18% instead of 20. Or sometimes I want to give 25%. I'm like, wow, that person was amazing. They went so far. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's during the holiday season and going out there and Christmas shopping and dinner events and things like that, kind of get-togethers. I just had this rush of stuff. It's just like every week, and where I started really paying attention to all of these little expenses here and there, and just also the price of things, right? Just the being conscious that I paid.
Because all of a sudden you look at your bank account and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. That I paid, that I paid $8 less for this the last time that I did it. It wasn't that long ago. It was like maybe in the spring or something, and and just like, I'm like, wow, I'm paying it. Nobody's shying away from charging it. used to paying more now, like that um like I'm not putting up a fuss about it anymore. Like I just kind of hold my tongue and I understand because my expenses have gone up, Um then it made me think, I'm like, oh my God, like, wow, I really got, I think I got to do the same thing here,
Yeah, yeah.
and not be afraid to do it. I mean, you're always just, I think some people think that as like a business owner, you're like eager to just mark the prices up and make a lot of money. I'm going to make a lot of extra money, and so, but it's really the opposite. It's like I really prefer not to.
Right. In reality, you're just trying to keep up, and your expenses are skyrocketing, and
Yeah.
you have to make it up somewhere.
Yeah, and also like I think I've talked about it a lot here on the show about trying to get this team to get these mechanics and attract some talented mechanics to come and work for me. Well, it comes with a steep price. I mean, you're to get these people is going to require paying them well, and so it's like when you start looking at that and you start looking at what you're going to what you would need to pay them, then you start figuring out how much you're going to have to charge them,
Yep.
charge the customer to
Yep.
maintain that, or how many repairs you have to bring in, and how many potential tune-ups do you lose because you're charging $10 more for a tune-up than the guy down the street, so yeah, I mean it's a tricky spot right now, I think, for small businesses, and so that's a lot of the stuff I'm wrestling with right now. Like just labor costs, and how much do you charge for a derailleur adjustment? There's not a lot of us out there doing that kind of work, and I get it. I hear it all the time. It's like, whoa, it's hard to find a bike shop around these days, and and
You're like, here I am.
Here I am. When I look around, I'm like, you're right. There are a lot. There are,
and
less.
There's a reason. And people who are smart understand the macro microeconomics of it too.
Yeah,
it's not like you're sitting there trying to make $1 million at the shop, but you're just trying to stay above and a little bit better than that, right? So you gotta increase your prices too. Have you ever had someone kind of say, "Hey, this is a lot," or "This is too expensive," or have you had to kind of explain to them like why you maybe charge what you charge?
Yeah. I think that more people are understanding than you. I think there are way more people are understanding of it, but the ones that you really pay attention to are the ones that complain, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's always the guy. It's always the 1 out of 10, or the 1
How
out
much?
the 1 out of 20 that you remember and that you freak out about. And that's one of those conversations that we have during these dealer meetings. In that, some of the more experienced guys are like, well, yeah, you might have lost that guy, but you're making $10 more on the other 19 people, right?
Yep.
So if 1 out of 20 people complain about it, well, you lost that, you might lose that guy, but you're making it up and more by charging more for your tune-up, and your labor. So you have less work, you're making as much or more, and you got rid of somebody who, probably it was just price shopping anyway, probably not a good customer. So, but I still don't want to lose that guy. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, of course.
It's always, it's hard for me to wrap my head around it sometimes when, even you work hard to make a customer. So you're always a little weary of losing anybody. So.
Yeah, my thing was always transparency. I don't, I think it's these days customers expect so much, and businesses have to do so much to earn their dollar, their kind of like business, etc. And with bike shops, sometimes they're a little bit like going into the local auto mechanic. You're kind of like, you have no idea, like, how much is it to fix my brakes? Like if you had a car,
yeah,
and it's not like posted anywhere. Like the better places do it, and maybe more places do it now.
Yeah,
I don't hang out in a lot of those places. I don't have a car, but the bike shops I've been into, and I can't think of one recently, not for years maybe, but they don't have anything posted, their prices. That drives me nuts. like it's not really on the website, or they give like a price of a tune-up, but like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
The better places have prices for pretty much everything, like
I know.
brake adjustment, front regular adjustment, rear derailleur adjustment. And I get it. Like sometimes you don't know until you're doing it that, oh, you know what, you need this and you need this, but I like to have transparency, at least something to work with.
Yep.
And then always, to equally as important, is they call you before they do anything. They say, hey, I know you wanted a rear derailleur adjustment, but the reason you're chain skipping or not in the right place is you need a new chain. And most people replace their chain and cassette at the same time. So just so you know, this is kind of how we do it. Now we can do what you asked us, but it may not last very long, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's that transparency that I've always appreciated, at least at a certain level. Like have a board, have a list, like here's what we charge. It's not mystery meat. It's like, this is what we do. I've been in places where there's nothing posted. And you ask, and like sometimes they even hesitate. Like it's almost like, well,
depends on how much we like. Yeah. I mean,
it's weird.
Yeah,
it's not like, if you compare it to other businesses, those things don't really happen. Like, can you imagine going into like a Target and being like, hey, how much for that 24-pack of hipster water?
No, and I mean, I guess it's part of the businessification of the bike business, right? I mean, this kind of like tightening things up, and we do, some of the more, like you said.
Have you guys talked about this in your industry people meetings, the ones you kind of referenced tonight? Like, have you talked about literally the aspect of just having a transparent list of prices?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. The nuts and bolts about it, the nuts and bolts of it, website, and just picking the brains of some of the really good business people in the bike business. There are, it's not void of real business people. There are like some people,
of course,
and them, and you recognize them because they own 5 stores, or these big beautiful stores with they really know what they're doing.
Great teams, and
yeah. I mean, there are some really legit places out there, and those are the places that are they're doing well. But if you want to be one of those small shops, those kind of what I'm aiming for, you got to take a little bit of that. You got to take a little bit of that and add that to your mix, because you can't just be the cool shop anymore. You have to be the cool, well-run business these days, and so it's tightening up all of those loose ends that we were able to maybe get away with back in the day, and these days you can't. That the reason you went into that shop that didn't have the prices posted was because they did good work, and before, like, maybe doing good work was enough. It was just like that was that was enough to get you in, the feel of the place,
but sometimes you show up to pick up your bike and they're like, that's $280, and you're like, what?
You're like, yeah, like,
I thought it would be like 100.
Yeah, like, why?
It's the mystery meat navigation,
like, why,
kind of idea.
Why did you do that? I didn't tell you to do that.
Well, we put on new this, and like, you did what? Like,
and I've always been good about calling about any of that stuff,
Yeah. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus. Like, I understand a lot of times, I would say in good faith, people are acting in good faith, like in general. But I think there are definitely, folks out there where they get that shock. They come in and they're like,
oh, no, for sure.
And part of it is they just don't hang around bike shops. They don't like buy bike stuff. But I can imagine, I'm sure you've seen it, where people are just kind of like, how much? Like, what? Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I've had it where like maybe somebody forgot to call that person, then I end up giving discounting things, or being very like, oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't explained to you. I do a pretty good job of explaining it to people.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm pretty lucky that I've been pretty hands-on at the business, so a lot of that stuff, especially the big ones, I see a lot of that stuff to begin with, and so I'm able to prepare people mentally for what it can be. And get ready for it. But as I try to scale up again and try to have it, separate myself a little bit and have mechanics and people checking stuff in, that it becomes pretty clear that I've got to button up all of those things and make it so that my not so expert employees, because not everybody's been in the business for 30 years and can knows to anticipate every
They're
single
they're
thing.
apprentices.
Yeah,
Basically.
they're new, but they should be able to check in a bike, point at a board, and say, "This is what you need. This is what you need. This is what you might not need. This is a rough idea of how much it's going to cost."
And it could vary based on XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm having to like, all right, what's the menu board going to look like, and what's the website going to look like, and so as many of those answers, I need to answer as many of those questions before the customer even walks in the door, so they're by the time they're walking in, they're prepared mentally for what they're gonna, what they might be encountering, and so I think it's also a good way to kind of, take a little bit of heat off of my employees, and that that customer's already coming in with that. They saw it. It's all written out. It's explained, and by the time they're bringing it in, they're ready for what's going to hit them.
This may be a stretch, but it actually reminds me when I was a teacher. We always say put everything, have everything in your syllabus. So when you start day one, like a college course, you'll have your syllabus from the professor, and it explains, all the books you're going to need, and then the rules, right? Like if you're absent for more than 2 classes, your letter grade goes down. Like no matter what, like I always remember, and I didn't teach higher ed much actually, but I do always remember that being like a sacrosanct thing among certain educators anyways, because you don't want someone to come in later. Part of it's like covering your own ass, or part of it too is just adding like crazy transparency to like, hey, here's how things work.
Yep.
So if you miss 2 classes, you're fine. But if you miss a third for any reason, unless it's a super exceptional thing, your letter grade for the course for the semester goes down by 1. So from A to B or B to C, which can be a huge, huge thing depending on, how your semester goes. But it's just that idea though, is like have everything in there, and then they sign it. And so that when it's like a contract, right? So it's like, when it comes back to it, here's what it is. And it just, I was thinking about that as you were saying that. It's not exactly the same idea, but having everything up front so there's not a sticker shock. Because if you ask people in the street, like, how much would it cost to fix a rear derailleur? I mean, people are going to be like, what?
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't going to know. And I haven't been on that side of it so much, but I've definitely had a couple instances. Even I've had a few where I'm like, oh, it's that much? Like I expected to pay $60 for this, and it was like 120, and I'm like, whoa, like okay. And I'm not saying there aren't valid reasons for it. It's just simply that kind of communication, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, part of it is that I grew up in the bike business, right? And I remember what I would charge to do a certain job, and just that it's even sticker shock for me what I'm having to charge these days relative to what I used to charge.
I'd like to think the majority of people today understand, look, if you're charging something, there's probably a good reason for it. And you're not just like, being some crazy exorbitant, kind of business. I think most people do appreciate, it may take you 5 minutes to adjust a rear derailleur, but that's because you've done it 5,000 times.
Yeah.
And you have the skill and experience, and that bike, looking at it as it comes through the shop, and you pretty much know exactly what you need to do to it. And if there's something wrong, you probably know exactly what the thing wrong is going to be. So you're paying for all of that. You're paying for all of that experience and know-how.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, you just did that in 5 minutes. It's like, yeah, so what?
Yeah.
If anything, it's better for you because I did it faster. But it's not to say it's still not a $50 job.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Just because I can do it fast and efficiently, I know exactly what to do. And I'm charging you for the 30 years of experience, not for the 5-minute repair.
Right.
And so these conversations are happening in a lot of bike shops around the country right now because I hear it. I'm participating in these phone calls and on these meetings with people from across the country. And there's a lot of talk about, how to handle things moving forward and standardizations. And, that's kind of hard. That's a hard thing to do because your expenses are different in different parts of the country. So it's not going to, there's no way to standardize the cost of a derailleur adjustment. But certainly getting a gauge of what people are charging here and there. And, you hear some costs from certain places and you're like, wow, wow, it's like we're in Chicago, and it makes me feel like I'm in a small town or something. When I hear what some people are charging for a tune-up, let's say the standard tune-up, something that we would charge, as an example, like let's say $89. Some places are charging like $150 for the same amount of service.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a big difference. It's a big difference, but in some places like San Francisco, that's to have a small bike shop in San Francisco is really expensive. Just because of the rent and the expenses involved with it and stuff. So,
oh yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. Mm-hmm. By the way, Joe, do you want to hear what Google says about how much does a derailleur adjustment cost?
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Take a guess.
$16.
25.
Really? That's what
according to Google.
Really? That's awesome. I was factoring in, places outside of the like metropolitan areas. I thought that they would bring that average down a little bit, but wow, that's good to hear. $25 for a derailleur adjustment. If Google's cool with that, then
Right. Yeah, and obviously that's just a very rough number, but yeah, I thought it was interesting. I was looking for it's the shop University Bicycles here in Boulder. I mentioned them to you before. Yeah. They have all those cool old bikes and stuff up on the wall. But I'm just looking for prices. And interestingly, Joe, I clicked on services and it says bike service. We offer the top of the line professional bike services. Our knowledgeable mechanics will work with you to diagnose, repair, and install new products on your bike. Then it says, we don't have established, quote, tune-up, unquote, or service packages, because we find it's more efficient and a better value if we address the individual needs of your bicycle. Talk to a mechanic at this number, ... So they don't even list any of their prices. I just find that interesting.
Wow. Well, I mean, and they're kind of an old school shop, right? They're like very heavy road.
Well, they have a lot of everything now. So they're like this huge shop, hence the name University. So they're near the school there. But they have everything. They have road, they have gravel, they have like hybrids, they're like a big shop, and they have mountain bikes. So I'm kind of surprised to see that. Maybe I shouldn't be, but
yeah, that's an unusual way to handle it. But obviously it must work for them, or they must.
For sure, sure.
I mean, they've been around for a long time, so whatever it is that they're doing is working for them. But
I'm sure it is. I
would say that the overwhelming thought these days, and definitely the talk of in the industry, is like that getting that price list fixed up, and get more of the model that you and I have just been talking about, where you kind of some transparency and being able to point prices out.
Hello, I'm Katie Lonke. You're listening to the Bills Shop Society podcast.
So one other thing I'm going to do, Joe, while I'm here, is I'm going to go to the actual physical location, the headquarters, I believe, of the Pros Closet.
Really? You're going to go take a tour or something, or?
So I'm gonna go. No, not like a journalism tour or anything like that. I'm just gonna go visit it out of curiosity. I believe you can go in and just like walk around and check out lots of cool stuff. But one of the things they allow you to do is you bring your bike, and I don't know what their process is. They you drop it off or whatever, but. If you want to sell your bike, you can bring it to them, and they will give you like an estimate, like what they would pay for it. So I might actually do that with my Domane. I'm in I have no mind to sell it. Eventually I will, for various reasons, but I'm really enjoying it. So I have no mind to sell it right now. But I know it's one of the best reselling bikes. Of all bikes, actually. And so I'm just curious what they might give me for it, more than anything. And they probably wouldn't give me what I wanted for it, but I'm just curious. And I just kind of want to see their office, their shop. So, I've followed them for quite a while, for a number of years now. And they've gotten lots of funding, and they have kind of an interesting model. And I think they're the biggest at what they do. So I'm kind of just curious. And in fact, I think I was probably near their shop today. In hindsight, I didn't even realize it. Not that I would have gone in today, but
So they have a They have
an
kind
actual
of a retail, like a
physical
retail
location.
location you can go into, huh? Cool.
So I'm not sure if it's retail and that you can go in and buy bikes. I'm new to this whole like physical address. I have to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait a second. They have a retail store. Oh yeah, so it is Louisville. Okay. Visit the largest bike store in Denver metropolitan area. Skip the shipping. Da 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 da. Oh yeah, so you can go and like see their bikes. They have a vast selection of bikes apparently. So
because their whole model is that they buy a bike from you at a price. It's kind of like CarMax or something, right? And then you ship them the bike, and then they guarantee then they sell it, they resell it, and guarantee with whatever guarantees, right? It's been inspected.
It's so funny you said CarMax because that's exactly what I was thinking. So no, yeah, they have, and so yeah, I'm sure the vast majority is done online, and they have the whole system. They thought it through very, very thoroughly. As a company that tries to stop, in the sense of like they've looked at every single pain point and block and all this. So everything from the process to getting your bike shipped to them so they can inspect it, and how they go about they have like 100 something point check, that they do. And their thing, I think it's fair to say, is they're, because, buying online, whether it's eBay or Craigslist or whatever it is, there's a lot of chance, right?
Sure.
You can buy stuff that's, whether intentionally or otherwise, it's just not what it's said to be. And so I think they've really have capitalized on this idea that they're pros, literally they're experts. They have high level racers and former pros like there, but they also have like really sound mechanics, of course, and then they have a whole business side. So point being is, they've really, I think, cornered that market. Maybe fair to say. I do think they're probably struggling like a lot of businesses these days, especially in like sports like cycling. So I'm sure they're having a tough time, I guess, but. Yeah, they do specialize in that higher end bike, especially road, but I know they do other stuff, mountain and cross and gravel and the whole shebang. But anyway, I'm always curious. I always like going into a physical location of a place that's mostly online.
Yeah.
It's always just kind of a fun experience. Like, hey, this is what you look like in real life.
Yeah. So I think that would be kind of cool for the listeners, for you to kind of get that experience, And
I'm on assignment, Joe.
Oh, that's cool, man. Well, I mean,
I'm like a beat reporter. I'm going to show up. Hey, give me the quotes.
The whole Boulder thing is, it's like being on assignment. Yeah, I was thinking, you're like in the hotbed of U.S. cycling, or at least what used to be the hotbed of U.S. cycling. And
sure, fair to say,
my better half is back in. She's with her parents in Spain right now, in the other hotbed of professional cycling.
Polar opposite.
Alicante, in that Alicante region, and I'm getting constant photos from her sitting behind the Trek team car in traffic.
Oh my god!
Yeah. I mean, I'll get a text in the middle of the day, or
you should post some of those on the gram.
The Bike Shop gram. I will. Shoot, today I think I have one, a current one of like one of the Trek team cars just sitting in front of her in traffic, and that's
funny.
Very common sight around her town. As they come into town and pick up supplies and stuff like that. So
I'll give a full report. I'll go in, and I'm just kind of curious. I just want to go and be like, hey, here's my bike. I'm just curious what you might think of it. Especially, we have some colder weather coming, so that might be a good day to do it, where I can, if they need it for a couple of days. But they apparently are very, very thorough. So I think the challenge with their business is scaling it and having like a big enough margin, of course, to make it really sustainable. I'm just not sure how many high-end bikes there are out there that people are willing to sell at kind of a discount almost. I don't know. We'll see. It's definitely an interesting company. So they're in Louisville, which is basically between like Boulder and Colorado. So I rode through Louisville today. So I'll go check it out. I'll be on assignment for the show. And Joe, do you want like just a real quick news roundup?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And let's do this. Go.
All right. I don't hear the beautiful little music, but I'll assume it's on.
I faked it.
And I fucked it up.
No, it's okay. I'm actually we got a complaint about the teletype machine we did.
No.
We got one guy.
Come on.
Yeah, we got a complaint about it.
Are we not going to do it?
No, I think we continue to do it.
Oh, we definitely continue
I
to
think
do it.
he thought it took away from the conversation. I'm like, I don't
Oh,
think it takes away from the conversation. I will admit though that it in the last episode it was up a little high, even for
okay. So you
my
can turn
liking.
it down a little bit.
Yeah, I can turn it down. So
Okay.
I'll insert it in the I'll insert it in the mix.
I was like, if you gave me a cue, I must have
No,
missed
see,
it.
you like this, so I mean, I think my instincts are right. I'm gonna keep doing it, even if it bothers
I
him
think
a little
it's
bit.
hokey and
Yeah,
fun
it is.
and campy, and
Yeah, I think so too. And I think he made me question it. He did make me. I'm like, should I get maybe like a keyboard and modernize it a little bit, real low?
I just always imagine that one of the Muppets, banging on like a keyboard or a drum.
Yeah, no, I like the whole thing. Nostalgia is a drug, Danny, and I say we serve up that we are the peddlers of nostalgia. And
I think that might be an example of skeuomorphism when you use something. It's hard to define this, but it's this idea that you use something like a visual representation of something that you don't necessarily need. Like, for example, a calculator on your phone or computer could just be anything, but we still use the old image of like a calculator. So this word skeuomorphism.
Oh.
So, Joe, when you see paneling, the fake wood on the side of cars,
yep,
that's skeuomorphism.
Okay.
So it's this idea, it's like kind of like this throwback to like, remember when this thing happened? Like, here's a fake version of it.
Sure.
This is a big thing that designers talk about, like Apple designers. Like, should we do away with this skeuomorphism? Do we need to have like a trash bucket to show, that we're in the garbage can of the computer, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if it's kind of a version of it. It reminded me of it. So real quick, Joe, so I've been out of the loop a little bit because of the holidays. So I haven't been keeping abreast of all news, but just a couple of quick things I found that were maybe of interest. So Richie Port did this interesting interview with L'Equipe, which, if readers don't know, is the French news daily. I believe it's the best-selling news daily in all of Europe. So they cover all sports, including cycling, especially during the tour. It's kind of a must-read for a lot of folks. So L'Equipe did this interview with Richie Port, and Velo News did kind of like a best of from the interview. And it was just kind of interesting. Port has been retired now a little bit, and he did this kind of interview, and he just talked about, so the headline that Velo News went with was cycling has become a mathematical equation, in quotes, from the Richie Port interview. And he kind of talked about, it's nothing super surprising to a lot of folks, I'm sure, but he just talked about how, like, Froome at his best, or Pogacar these days, they're physiological beasts. But he talks about this kind of data-driven sport now, the data-driven peloton, and how high pressure it is. So he has some interesting things in there, and I won't give it all away because you should go read and support Velo News. But he did talk about how, it was a great, privilege to be able to ride a bike for a living and live in the south of France and all of that. So he goes on to talk about some of these things, but he does talk about how, he says cycling is a simple thing. It's, you get on your bike and you kind of smash the pedals, but now it's such a mathematical equation. He especially goes into, Joe, this idea of like diet. And he said he was never one to weigh his food. And he actually always, in hindsight, he always performed better when he was like a kilo overweight, just because he felt better. And so he goes into like some of these interesting things, and he was on a number of teams. So he had some interesting perspective, and he rode for some of the best riders of his generation, including Froome. So it was just kind of an interesting thing. It's not like necessarily the newsiest stuff, but Velo News is leading with it at the moment. And I just thought it was kind of interesting. He talks about how he admires Thibaut Pinot, who is like this, kind of hero of French cycling. He doesn't like criticism, and he kind of tries to keep it out of his head. But he's also just kind of like an everyday guy almost, and he doesn't like stare at his computer all day and his numbers and his watts. And anyway, just kind of goes into some stuff there. And I thought it was a pretty good interview. I want to go back and read the L'Equipe one. But yeah, so that was a good kind of like off-season story,
Yeah.
So he had some good things to say about that. cyclocross is kind of at its peak for my money. Of course, the world champs aren't for a month or two, but I do think that it's kind of cool that they have that. What do they call it? The Kirsta period, the Christmas period over in Belgium. It's that week or week and a half of like back to back like top cyclocross races, and so Matthew Van Der Poel, Wout van Aert, Tom Pidcock, others, they're all racing, so they get these nice fees to start up, the start line fees, and so like you said, there's no rest for the wicked, right? So they're there and they're just putting it all out there in these cyclocross races. Obviously, they're just 1 hour efforts, but it's still a lot of training, and it's a hard hour.
A hard hour,
sure.
Yeah. No,
so
it's amazing watching these guys go at it. I'm like, when do you guys take a break? You know, like, when are you taking a little time to rest? I guess they took a little break, right? There was like a little lull there, a month and a half or 2 months that you didn't hear a lot from those guys, and because they just fired it up maybe a month ago again, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I saw a lot of socials with like Wout and Matthew and all these guys like down in Spain, of course, doing these fun, cool rides. Well, they look like that. I'm sure they're leg breaking for normal humans like us. But in other news, Joe, again, it's kind of that time of the season where it's not real news, but who do you think is the Velo News Awards 22 Rider of the Year, Male Rider of the Year? Want to take a guess, Joe?
Male Rider of 2023. Vingegaard?
Nope.
Vinago.
Vingegaard. He's got more syllables than I don't know what, but Vingegaard. No, actually, he's not. But I think he wasn't even a runner-up. See,
really?
That's the crazy thing about Vingegaard. He won one real race all year, and it was the Tour.
That was the big one.
But kind of like nothing else, right? So that's been like the real mystery, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Just super weird. But do you want to take a second guess, Joe?
Male. See, I'm thinking outside of the the big names. Maybe something from left field, but
no,
it's probably going to end up being someone pretty
yeah.
Roglic?
Nope, it's Remco Evenepoel.
I mean, one of those big names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Remco is their male rider of the year. Wout van Aert is runner-up along with Pogacar and Girmay, which is an interesting runner-up threesome there. All worthy, of course.
Evenepoel? I mean, I know he won the Vuelta. I mean,
Vuelta and World Championships.
There you go. Yeah.
And I think, didn't he also win Liège? What did he win? I think he won everything this year.
Yeah.
He was. I mean, I feel like that's pretty much a no-brainer. But
there was just that long stretch in between the spring and the fall where he didn't do. It didn't seem like he did a lot, but he ended up strong. I mean, he finished really strong. I mean, he ended the year just on top of everything. So
So Liège, Bastogne-Liège, and the Vuelta, not to mention the World Championships.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the thing called the Worlds.
There you go.
So there was like this huge lull with him, because when he came on the scene, he was going to win everything. Like he was the boy wonder. Then he disappeared for like a year and a half or 2 years, right? I mean, the accident and all the rest.
The accident,
I mean, it was a big deal, but like after that accident, he like really went away. You didn't hear anything about him, and you thought he was kind of gone. And then he burst, like he came back hard, like it's a nice story. It is. It's good. I'm happy he was able to reach that promise that he had, because when I remember when he came into the sport, like he was supposed to be the next Eddie Merckx when he came into the sport,
right? The power he puts out is just insane. He's dropping like top World Tour rider, so it's kind of scary.
It's crazy.
And the North American male rider of the year is Nielsen Paulus.
Really?
And runner-up is Sepkus and Magnus Sheffield. Paulus had a great season. He seemed to be like in all kinds of really important breaks. He was top 10 at Liège, 4th at Swiss overall. He had 2 4th-place finishes at the Tour. And just he seems to have won like the crowd sentiment. He seems like to be a kind of much loved rider.
He's the guy with the mustache, right?
No. That's I think you're Magnus Kort, the Dane.
That's the Dane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nilsson Paulus is. I don't think he has anything super distinctive about him. He's kind of like a classic bike racer. Pretty lean, definitely muscular, but kind of a straightforward looking guy, if you will.
But American guy with a very Euro name, though.
Yeah, no, totally.
That's why it's so confusing to me. His name is not, Chad.
Yeah,
Johnson,
well, what's funny, Joe, is he's the first. You might remember he made headlines also for being the first Native American rider to win, and I believe his sister. Remember Dan Calavari talked about interviewing her. So yeah, he's made some interesting headlines.
Yeah.
And then they just have this little, no particular order, miscellany of other prizes they gave out. So men's team of the year, Jumbo-Visma. I don't think that's a shock to anyone. Under the radar star of the year, Arnaud Delis. I don't even really know him so much. So who else here? Race of the year, Tour de France stage 11. Forget the Soccer World Cup. This was the best day of all sport all year. Jumbo-Visma picking apart Tadej Pogacar on the Galibier and Granon was a 5-hour thrill that will be rewritten for years to come. I think that's totally a good call. That was insane. That's when Pogacar they kind of cracked him. Remember that?
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing stage. That was some old school bike racing there.
Yeah, totally. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that was like, that had the feel of something that we were very used to watching back in the day.
Yes. So much good stuff. And then surprise the TT champ. We talked about this in a previous pod, but Tobias Foss, everyone was like, who's that? So he upset Remco and Philippe Gana and all these guys. So just pretty interesting roundup here. They got some other stuff there, but I won't give it all away. People can go to Velo News and check it out. And another news item here, Joe, is Jan Ullrich is making headlines once again. Oh. He has opened the door to the possibility of returning to working in cycling. Can you believe it?
Oh, I thought he was coming back. I'm like, the comeback.
Jordan.
I'm like, here he goes. He's going to come back. Really? Like getting behind the wheel of a car or something? Or,
he has left it kind of open. Really? The 1997 Tour winner said he's put all, basically a lot of his demons behind him. He had a number of things going on after he retired and quit because of his doping. But then went on to have all kinds of things like a pretty reckless DUI. I think he had a battery charge. He just went through a lot of stuff and on and off the bike. And he just talked about how he's put a lot of behind him and he would be open to working in cycling again if anyone wanted to reach out to him. So he did say, obviously, this is a quote, obviously I wouldn't be a team director sportif, but if someone needs me, I'm open to anything. Of course, I won't force the issue. I just thought that was interesting. Can you imagine Jan Ullrich back in like a team? That would just be such a cool throwback. I have a soft place in my heart for Jan.
Yeah.
I just feel like, there were like asshole dopers and then there were dopers who weren't assholes. And I think he was in the latter camp.
Well, he wasn't banned for life or anything like that, right? I mean, he didn't get any kind of banishment from the sport.
Although some others.
Yeah, so it didn't seem like, I have seen him in some of those photos, like in Mallorca, doing some camps and things like that. So he has been participating in some of these, like, these Ride with the Star camps and things like that. And I've seen
he looks like. Oh, sorry, delay there.
No, I did see him participating in some of the they're like these Spanish fondos and stuff, and he's been kind of on the start line with Indurain and a couple of like players from that time. So I know he's been dabbling as of late. I've seen him more as of late than I did for a long time. And he was looking tan and not terrible in a jersey. So
right. No, he looks pretty good, and more than just the physical body aspect of it. He looks like he's just at peace, and I don't know. From afar, obviously I don't know him, but he seems like he's at peace, and he's just in a good spot. And by the way, if people haven't read Daniel Frieb's book, I haven't read it yet myself, but I have it on my list, so I will read it. He did a big, long, well-researched, and I believe well-written book about Jan Ulrich, and so. That got a lot of play this fall, and it's on my list. It's supposed to be really good. Daniel Frieb is the cycling podcast guy.
Yeah.
One of the guys there, and he wrote a really big. I don't know if it's a definitive biography of Merckx, but he wrote like a massive book on Merckx. So he's written a handful of books, and I think he's a really good writer. So if people are interested, check it out. And then kind of winding up here again, it's a relatively odd time of year, and news has been here and there, but. Wout van Aert, Joe, he wants some peace and quiet at home. I don't know if you saw this headline.
I did see something about that. Yeah.
The Belgian star asks fans to respect his privacy as his profile continues to rise. Wout van Aert is hoping fans will check their fervor at the racetrack. The Belgian star revealed that overzealous fans are starting to invade his privacy as the star continues to rise in the international peloton. Quote, it happens every week that people just ring the doorbell. I prefer to be left alone at home, unquote, Van Aert said Thursday. I noticed that the attention for me is increasing. I always think it couldn't get any worse, but then it turns out that it can.
Wow.
Et cetera, et cetera. People just ring his door. He says there's no need for this. Poor guy. Yeah. It can be really obviously annoying and invasive of one's privacy or privacy, as they say across the pond. And so folks can read the rest of that. But just a little teaser, some of the news that I've been following. And yeah, I'm just pretty interested in this. And just the last footnote, maybe interest to some folks. And I know you like Roglic, Joe, a lot. Jumbo-Visma apparently is sending Jonas Vingegaard to the Tour de France in 2023 and Roglic to the Giro.
Yeah, that would mean Giro and Vuelta probably for him. So,
yeah, possibly. Yeah. So It looks like they've made up their mind who's going to win what. And there you go. So I'll be looking for the Women of the Year riders. I don't think they've announced those yet. The female riders of the year. We had the male ones. So we'll keep an eye out for the next pod. But that's your news roundup, Joe. Unless I miss anything major.
No, I think you got. I mean, those are the big. Those are some of the big stories, and we've got another week before all the lists and all the top various things of the cycling world are printed and put out there into print. I know we've started to see some of that stuff come through. So we'll keep an eye, like you said, we'll keep an eye open for that.
And we should maybe come up with our own list, Joe, to wind up things next week, maybe as a year. And maybe I'll come up with my own list. I'll keep it
all right
until then. But it has. I think personally, it's been a pretty cool year. And we could talk more about it next time. But I think from a cycling fan perspective, I think it's been a pretty cool year. I really enjoyed the Tour, but we had a lot of other great races. I thought the World Championships had some really interesting surprises and things like that. And yeah, I don't know. I think the classics were pretty good too. And yeah, it's been interesting. We're in that phase, the next phase, I guess, where Van der Poel and Wout van Aert are getting a little older now. Not old, but they're not these like spring chickens anymore. But then you have the new guys coming up, including Vingegaard and Evenepoel and some of these folks. But you still have other guys, and obviously some folks retiring, like we talked about Richie Porte. But then you have some other guys still kind of hanging on, right? Finally, Valverde left, Nibali left. But then you have like Uran. He's going to do another year or two. I don't know. I always find that aspect of it fascinating too, because sometimes those little dogs can still come out with some good wins, and it's always interesting to see too how the younger riders mix with these veterans who have all these great like tactics and strategy and kind of race knowledge, race IQ. Anyway, I thought it was a pretty good year. That's a quick version, but maybe we'll talk next week. I'm going to think over it in the coming week, and I'll also bring you a little journalism, Joe, from from Louisville, Colorado, and I'll talk about the visit to Pro's Closet.
Yeah, when is that? When are you planning on doing that stop?
It's open. I don't have a set day, but I'll probably go when it's too cold to ride for a few days.
Okay.
I actually don't mind if it's pretty cold, but I'm always wary of like wiping out on some black ice and breaking my elbow or something.
Yeah, be careful with that.
But yeah, if it's dry, I'll probably go out until it's like, as long as it's in the 30s. But anyway, possibly at the end of this week or the weekend or early next week. But I'll have it for our next chat.
Very cool. We look forward to that.
Have you been hitting your indoor trainer, Joe?
I did. I rode. I decided. Well, I think the decision was made for me by the fact that I'm not in stellar shape to forego the Rafa Festive.
Yeah.
But if I can, ride from here to the end of the year regularly, I'll be happy with that. From here to just chain together some nice trainer rides. Maybe be able to knock out a couple hour ride by the end of the year comfortably. I'll be nice, and I'll be good, and kind of keep that momentum going into next year. So yeah, definitely. I got the yoga mat out. Started doing a little stretching.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. Yoga's so good. And by the way, for the folks who may not know, but the Rafa Festive 500, so it's basically ride 500 kilometers, right? Between like Christmas and New Year, something like that. And so I think it's a pretty brilliant PR campaign. They've been doing it a number of years, and it's kind of cool. One thing I did notice today, because I saw some social posts about it or something, is even if you can't do the 500K, which is a lot, that's like 60 miles a day for whatever you do the math. They still say, hey, even if you get out 5 times, is just good enough, or get on your bike and your indoor trainer. So
really, does that qualify me for a jacket or something, or?
I don't know if it officially does, but from what I remember reading, it was kind of like the spirit was there. But if you want to get that jacket, man, let me know. Let me know if you score an extra hood.